Hi, mystery writers. Well, today I want to talk about something that is one of my favorite things to talk about. That is the mysteries magic character triangle. And I think when you're having trouble with things, if you go back to this basic of the character triangle, you're going to resolve a lot of the questions you may have about going forward with your story. And of course, it helps you when you start writing. Uh, the triangle is the character base for your story. So, unlike most novels with a hero and a villain, a protagonist and an antagonist, a mystery requires three main characters: the victim, the sleuth, and the villain. And these three characters form the base triangle for any mystery novel. Each of these characters plays a role in a mystery, and as a writer, you must have all three in your mystery to work. And unlike most novel genres, in a mystery, two of these characters are hidden, don't have, they're hidden from the reader, as it were. The victim's life is revealed slowly to point toward the villain, uh, but at the start of the story, the reader knows nothing about the victim and nothing about the villain. So, in a series with the same sleuth, each story has a different victim and villain, and the sleuth works to discover the relationship between the victim and the villain. That's how the sleuth uncovers what happened and is able to reveal the killer at the end. It put that final puzzle piece in place. Um, so in a series, you have the same sleuth, but a different victim and villain in each story. So when you understand each character, you can build relationships and antagonisms that lead toward your conclusion at the end. Without a strong background for each of these main characters, your mystery will fall flat. So, in other words, your victim can't just be a dead body over there, and your villain can't be a bad guy. You need a lot more, right? If your villain is flat, your reader may guess who the villain is before the conclusion. And the other thing is, if you don't know a lot about your victim, they won't, to the reader, they won't feel worthy of the killing. Like, who cares whether so and so was murdered or not? So you need to really understand these characters and reveal them as your story goes along, um, because each of those characters balances out the other. So this victim and the villain uh, challenge your sleuth. And putting together your mystery puzzle is all about that challenge. So, first, let's take a look at the victim. It's so important. Um, the victim is the fulcrum of the mystery. They're the one against whom the crime was committed. And usually at the beginning of your mystery, your sleuth knows very little about that victim. That I mean, the victim is the raison d'etre of the mystery. Without the victim, your sleuth would have nothing to do. No clues to find, no suspects to interview, no puzzle to solve. There would be literally no mystery. So, as a writer, you need to build a strong character background for your victim, because this background is the basis of all the things that your sleuth discovers as they go along. So, even though your victim may have no speaking part and appear as a corpse, the victim is the foundation of your mystery. Um, the, spus- the suspects you have in your story derive from your victim's circle of friends and enemies. And your sleuth learns about their quirks, their likes, and their dislikes, and their personality traits, all the things that the sleuth knows and learns about, and the reader learns about the victim, comes from interviewing the suspects and any clues they may discover. And the first half of your novel is spent discovering that victim's world. Your sleuth is uncovering and uncovering and uncovering more and more and more about who that victim really was. And that is one of the reasons you really need a solid character background for your victim, because you build up all these things that your detective can discover about them. Um, the reader follows along in your sleuth's investigation. That's what they love about reading mysteries. And along with the sleuth, they form opinions about the victim. Were they a despicable human being, a seemingly virtuous soul, a likable scoundrel? I mean, the more your detective learns, the more your reader learns about who this victim was. And just like your sleuth, your reader tries to guess why the victim was killed and who did it. All right. So your victim is more than just a dead body. Something that your victim did, some personality trait, something about that victim um, triggered a murder. And you, the writer, need to know why. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum is the villain. Um, so a challenge for mystery writers is creating that antagonist that's worthy of your sleuth while keeping them hidden at the same time. And in order to accomplish this and keep your reader guessing until the end, you need to create a full, deep character background. So your sleuth is going to be, you know, peeling back those layers of the onion, as it were, of who the villain is. And as they discover more about them through interviewing other suspects and interviewing the villain as a suspect, um, I learn more and more. So to make the murder believable, you need to tie your villain's motivations to the victim's personality. That's one of the keys, is tying your villain's motivation to the victim's personality. And until you know the victim's personality, you lack a true motivation for your villain. And it's kind of like backstory gone wild. Not that you need to reveal all this stuff in your story. You just need to know it as the creator of the story. Um, in other words, you can't keep them a secret unless you know what they are, so you can plant those little clues about those secrets throughout your story, because your villain works behind the scenes through most of your story. Uh, but you need to know why they did what they did in order to hide that villain in plain sight of your reader. And at the same time, you need to know how the villain puts pressure on the sleuth, because once the villain discovers that the sleuth is trying to solve this mystery, they're going to do everything in their power to keep the sleuth from discovering who they are. They're going to lead them down false trails. They're going to hide their antagonism. They're, they're going to play tricks and cause trouble for your sleuth. And then the third point of the triangle is your sleuth. Your sleuth is your guy or gal who shines. They're your reader's lead leader through the story. Your reader follows your sleuth as they do all this discovery work. Your sleuth is your hero. So you need to know more about this character than any other character in your story. And you build tension through conflict. So you need to know how your sleuth reacts to any situation. And that reaction has to be in character. Not only do you need to supply your sleuth with an armory of detecting skills, you need to know a variety of their character traits to make them an empathic character that your reader relates to. You need to respond to obstacles and conflicts in ways that reflect their character and yet supplies your reader in order to keep your story from being predictable. So your sleuth's difficulties arise from their strengths and weaknesses, and that can blind them from interpreting um, what they see, what they hear, from all the clues and the suspects. For example, a personal prejudice against a suspect may keep your sleuth from hearing important information. You need to know not just the strengths and weaknesses, but their personal preferences and their antipathies. You really need a full picture of your sleuth so you can pull out the details that you need about your sleuth in any scene. Um, and these traits definitely hold precedence over any physical traits like their size or their hair color, things like that. Those personal preferences and antipathies are the things that get your reader involved, and your sleuthing skills are the things that your reader puts faith in, that by the end of your mystery, it's going to be solved, right? So the more you know about your sleuth, you'll be better able to give your sleuth in character responses to any situation. So that means you can brainstorm as wild as you want to be, any kind of situation. And at the same time, you're going to know how your sleuth responds to that situation because of their character makeup. And this knowledge will help you create imaginative and unique situations for your first novel and any that follow in a series. So I highly suggest that you create a strong triangle in every mystery that you write. And before you begin writing, work on your character development for each of these three characters. You'll find as you develop your storyline and while you are writing that your full knowledge of these three characters will help you create unique and believable situations in your mystery. Okay, that's it. I hope that helps. I'd love to hear um, how you work your mystery triangle. I'd love to hear that in the comments. So let me know. And if you have any questions, also comments, please. And keep writing. And I'll see you next week.